Potion Masters, Chapters 7 and 8. Now, this is my office, Wanda announced after she had led Gordy to the 4th floor and through a plain wooden door. A plastic plant teetered on one corner of her desk, along with a computer and about a half a dozen binders. There was a filing cabinet as well, but that was it. No windows. The only picture was an old photo of the family posing beside the Alamo. The walls were gray and navy blue, and the office was neat and tidy. "What do you think?" Wanda asked, plopping down into her swivel chair. Gordy looked around the room. Where were the cauldrons, the beakers and flasks, and paper packets of exotic herbs? How did his mom brew? Gordy had never understood what exactly his mom did for a living, but he had always assumed it involved medicine. She was constantly flying to conventions where she presented her various findings. "I don't know," Gordy said, looking down at his shoes. "It's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" He shrugged. "Something a little less normal." His mom raised her eyebrows. "Something more magical?" "Well, yeah." He didn't want to sound childish, but where was the mystery? "Most of the offices here, aside from Bolter's, of course, will be more in line with what you're looking for. But in truth, I'm not like the others who work on this floor. I may have a medical background and work on side projects now and then, but those are hobbies, really. I actually don't spend a lot of time in this office." Gordy shifted his weight. "I know, you travel and speak at conferences." She smiled. "Sometimes I do travel, but not always where you think." Gordy frowned. If not to conventions or conferences, where did she go all the time? Over the past 4 years, ever since Gordy discovered the existence of BREW and his mom's role at the headquarters, she had spent at least 6 months out of every year away from home. She was always on the road to places like Kansas and Delaware, boring places where she showcased her findings on allergy remedies and whatnot. "Come with me." Wanda stood up from her chair and came around her desk. She clasped Gordy's hand in hers and led him back to the elevators. "I want to show you something." Once inside, his mom inserted a key in the elevator's control panel and pressed a red button that appeared below the numbered doors. The gears whirred and creaked as the elevator descended past the bottom floor and lower parking levels. Finally, the elevator arrived at its destination. The doors slid apart and Gordy stepped out into a brightly lit hallway. The light, however, did not come from lamps or chandeliers like the one in the main lobby. Instead, an unusual silver light emitted from inside a glass room up ahead. There was another security post with an x-ray machine and multiple armed guards standing watch in front of the room. One of the guards nodded at Gordy's mom when she held up her security badge. "You don't have access to go in," she said to Gordy, "but my badge is an all-access pass. It is linked to my body signature. Anyone trying to enter BREW without security clearance would be arrested. That's why I had to file paperwork to have you cleared in order to accompany me today." Wanda nodded toward the glass room. "Anyone trying to enter there without this pass would face something much, much worse than imprisonment." "Like what?" Gordy whispered. "Death, for starters, if you're lucky." His mom grinned. Gordy couldn't tell if she was being serious or not. Something told him she was only half joking. "What's in there?" "That room contains the vessel." His mom pointed to a glowing chalice behind the glass, resting on a crystal pedestal. The chalice looked like a large golfing trophy, with handles on either side and a wide mouth filled with some sort of liquid. It was the liquid that glowed with a silver light, and Gordy, marveling at its surprising brilliance. "It is the source of our power here at BREW. The vessel grants authority to all members of the board, including me." She rested her hand on Gordy's shoulder. "It's how we've been able to make such impressive developments in society. All of our medical findings, our weapons, and our technological advancements, even Bolter's lonely floor of automated improvements, can be linked to the vessel." The potion inside the vessel remained in a state of constant motion. Gordy wondered what made it move so much. The chalice wasn't resting on a cauldron or any heat source that he could see, nor was it hooked to a centrifuge. Yet the vessel's contents never settled. The surface ceaselessly rippling. "That potion is the most important one ever invented." Gordy's mom said, "Thus the reason for such heightened security. It needs to be protected." From who? Gordy wondered. Wanda licked her lips and sighed. Unfortunately, BREW has its share of enemies. That was news to Gordy. Enemies? Why would the potion-making world have enemies? As a member of BREW, I have certain rights and abilities to help maintain the peace in the potion community, his mom said. That's what I really do. It's a secretive job, and so I have an office on the medical floor that serves as a decoy. Gordy's forehead furrowed. Are you like a cop? Was his mom trying to say that she was in BREW law enforcement? No, not a cop. More like a bounty hunter. Gordy's mouth dropped open. Serious? I have the power to, if necessary, lock terrible people away. People who would use their gifts of potion making to cause harm to the innocent. The vessel gives me the power to bind my judgments. Gordy's stomach clenched into knots, and he felt a tremor in his fingers. His mom was sharing a secret about her alternate life, and he wasn't sure he was ready to hear about it. Gordy wasn't afraid of her. Rather, he was worried about the dangers she apparently faced whenever an early morning taxi whisked her away to the airport. His mom squeezed his hand and took a deep breath. I wasn't planning on going into great detail about it, but you've grown up so much this past year. You're coming into your own and developing your gift. I felt you were ready to understand the truth about the world you live in. Does Dad know? She nodded. Your father understands a lot of what I do, but he doesn't know the extent of my responsibilities. So when you went to Topeka earlier this week, Gordy started. Wanda shook her head. I can't go into details of my recent trip, but I can tell you I didn't go to Kansas. I'm sorry, Gordy, for the lies. I hope you understand that I wasn't able to tell you the truth because of the nature of my work. I just don't want you to be mad at me. I'm not mad at you. At least Gordy didn't think he was mad. Discovering his mom's secret life was actually kind of cool. If anything, it made her kind of like a superhero or something like James Bond. Do you have any questions for me? She asked. Gordy nodded. What's in it? She scrunched her nose in confusion. The vessel? Gordy pressed. What ingredients are in it? Ha ha, you want to test out your skills, do you? Well, you don't even think about it, Bucko. There are too many different variables and ingredients involved, concocted by the most skilled elixirist ever to master a potion, for even a young dram like you to decipher it. But I can tell you it's really old. She gazed through the window, eyeing the vessel with reverence. The founders of BREW created it almost 300 years ago. Gordy watched as the potion boiled and churned. A silvery bubble formed at the surface and popped. His nostrils flared as he strained to catch a whiff of the mysterious mixture, but the glass was too thick and he couldn't pick up even the slightest of scents. So you hunt people? Gordy asked, his voice strained. Like you catch them and lock them away? Do they try to hurt you? Not usually, she said. I've had years of practice to perfect the art of sneaking up on them, catching them unaware, incapacitating them in a way that doesn't allow for retaliation. She winked at Gordy. The elevator chimed and the door opened behind them. Bolter swished in, his legs scrambling, his hand still somehow clutching the phone. Wanda! Bolter shouted, blurring past a couple of guards who had leaped to their feet. Bolter looked panicked, his eyes wild and his hair ruffled. For the first time since Gordy had been introduced to him, Bolter looked out of breath. What is it? Gordy's mom demanded. Bolter squeezed the phone and held it away from him as though it were about to explode. It's your sister, he said. It's Pris. Wanda snatched the phone from Bolter's hand and pressed it against her ear. Hello? She reared back as the piercing sound of static erupted from the receiver. Pris, what happened? What have you done? Gordy swallowed. He had never heard his mom so angry at his aunt before. Gordy loved Aunt Pris. She was always sneaking him secret ingredients to practice with or sending him special packages. It had been more than a year since he saw her last. Why was his mom shouting? No, you come in now, his mom bellowed. Pris, I can't hear you. What are you talking about? And then the static stopped. Wanda stared at the phone, and Gordy knew the line had disconnected. His mom looked at Bolter, her jaw clenching in anger. Wanda, I heard very little, Bolter said, but I did hear her say Chicxulub. Gordy's mom nodded. I know, she muttered. Gordy didn't dare ask the meaning of the unusual word. It didn't sound like an herb or an ingredient to any potion he had ever heard about, but he could sense from his mom's behavior that now was not the time to ask questions. She motioned for him to follow her, and the three of them silently rode the elevator up to the main level. Chapter 8. "So where is your mom anyway?" Max asked, slumped on a stool in the Stitzer lab. Gordy glanced up from his workstation and caught himself before he blurted out the truth. "Oh, she's at a conference or something. I don't know." It was hard having two close friends who knew a little of the elixirist world and not be able to share all of his secrets with them. Max and Adeline knew Gordy's mom was a skilled potionist who used her talents for her position at Somnium. Her job sent her frequently out of town to sell lotions and body care products. Somnium fine creams and oils had a reputation for being mysterious in their production methods, so owning a lab with a variety of weird herbs and ingredients wasn't that far-fetched if your mom was a successful Somnium salesperson. Of course, Max and Adeline had no clue about the existence of BREW, and Gordy's mom insisted it remained that way. After the strange phone conversation at BREW headquarters, Gordy's mom had been distracted, her thoughts preoccupied on something else. She dropped him off at school and then sped away. When Gordy arrived home directly after school, he had just enough time to give his mom a hug, ask permission to allow his friends into the lab, which she agreed to without batting an eye, and say goodbye before she hopped in a taxi and headed for the airport. Her destination was a mystery. Even his dad seemed unsure of where she was headed. As soon as Max and Adeline arrived, Gordy buried his head in one of his mom's exotic herb manuals, searching for any clues to the meaning of Chicxulub. Where did it come from? What was it? A plant? An animal? So far, he hadn't found any hint to its meaning. Max drummed his fingers on a yellow tin box. What's cackling snore?" he asked. He pointed to the faded writing scribbled on a piece of masking tape stuck to the box's rusted lid. Gordy grimaced. It's probably better that you don't know." "Say that word again, Gordy," Adeline said, digging in her pocket and producing her cell phone. "Kickling snore?" Gordy asked, glancing up from his book. "No, not that one. The one you're looking for," she said. "It's Chicxulub, I think, but I may be saying it wrong." If only Gordy knew the word's etymology. Most ingredients derive their names from their country's origin, or from where the item could be found most prominently in the wild. Just like the box containing Kickling snore, while normal chicken snot was never a welcomed ingredient, the Swedish variety played an essential role in creative and a high-performing transparency potion. A few years ago, Gordy had used the sticky substance in order to see through the wrapping paper of his Christmas presents. "Could we mix something already?" Max begged. "We've been down here forever." "Sorry," Gordy said, closing his mother's herb manual. "I'm just trying to figure something out." "Well, figure out how to grow plants out of Mr. Boone's armpit or something," Max said. "That would be more productive. And it would get me out of my world history exam tomorrow." He chuckled, the smell of corn chips on his breath as he mimicked raising his hand in class. "Excuse me, Mr. Boone. Could you please be done with this test now? You're sprouting." "I knew it," Adeline shook her phone triumphantly, causing Max to nearly topple from his stool. "I knew I had heard of that place before. Chicxulub, Mexico. I learned about it when I was in El Salvador." "You learned about what?" Max steadied his stool and glared at Adeline. "About the asteroid," she said, showing the screen image to Gordy. "It's what ended the dinosaurs, supposedly." Adeline made air quotes with her fingers. "It says here that the Chicxulub asteroid made impact about 66 million years ago." "It's a place?" Gordy gently placed a couple of vials onto the counter and leaned over Adeline's shoulder. "I didn't even think of that." "So what do dinosaurs have to do with it?" Max asked, cramming a handful of corn chips into his mouth. "Probably nothing," Gordy said, "but an impact crater could be a prime location for harvesting hazardous ingredients." He rushed over to a filing cabinet near the rear of the lab and rummaged for a moment in the top drawer. When he returned to the counter, Gordy held a dusty leather book with crinkled pages. "This is one of my mom's old resource manuals," he said, carefully flipping through the book until he discovered the chapter he was looking for. Chapter 8, All Chemical Ruins. The chapter contains several pages of geological locations throughout the world noted by elixirs for having an abundance of perilous ingredients. Gordy ran his finger down the list. Chernobyl, Ukraine, Mayak, Russia, Sellafield, United Kingdom, Vredefort Crater, South Africa, Sudbury, Ontario, Manson, Iowa, Antipodes Islands, Palmyra Atoll. As he continued to scan, he felt his hopes deflate. Nowhere on the list did he see the name Chicxulub, Mexico. That could only mean one thing. If it wasn't included in his mom's manual, then the asteroid crater was not of any significance in the potion community. Gordy sighed in frustration. It's not here. So, does he have eyeballs and lips and stuff? Max asked. Huh? Gordy looked up from the manual and saw Max hovering over Baudry's body bag. Oh, he shook his head. I don't think so. And if he does, they're all shriveled up. Wicked, like my grandpa. Max waggled his eyebrows. He has some sort of lip fungus that makes him look like he's chewing with a pair of prunes. You should see him eat his morning grapefruit. It's unpleasant. Come on, Gordy, let me borrow the gas mask just for a second to take a look. Before Gordy could object, Max raced over to the counter and had nearly succeeded in laying claim to the coveted gas mask when Adeline stuck out her foot and tripped Max. The sound of clattering cauldrons echoed through the basement. What are you doing? Gordy barely managed to rescue two of his mother's glass bottles before they would have met their shattery end on the floor. Adeline tripped me. Max jabbed in an accusatory finger in the girl's direction. It was an accident, Adeline said, but she didn't look particularly apologetic. I didn't think you really wanted him to unzip Baudry. He's off limits, Max. Trust me, you don't want to see him, Gordy said. Max stood and looked at the wet splotches of ingredients soaking his shirt. I'm covered in kickling snore, and his face contorted with fear. It burns. It's burning me. I'm going to end up like Baudry. You did this to me, Rivera. I think I'm melting. Gordy slapped his hands down on Max's shoulder and shook him. It's lemon juice. I knew it, Max writhed in agony. The worst. I'm in lemon juice? Nice one, Maxwell. Adeline shook her head. Do you always quote The Wizard of Oz when you freak out? What are you guys doing down here? Isaac stood in the doorway, looking at the mess the three 12-year-olds had created. Isaac, you know the rules, Gordy said, startled by the appearance of his younger brother. You're too young to be down in the lab. I know, Isaac said, but I was yelling your name and you didn't answer the door. Someone dropped off a package for Mom and then drove away in a big brown truck. Isaac pointed a finger at Max's jersey. You've got pee all over you. It's lemon juice, Max pretended to threaten Isaac with one of his fists, but the younger boy just shrugged. A package? Gordy asked. Like as in a mailed package? Occasionally, his dad would receive weird toaster gizmos or faucets, but the packages his mom received always held much cooler stuff. Gordy raced up the stairs, 3 at a time. The musty brown package was no bigger than a shoebox and looked insignificant tucked underneath the corner of the welcome mat. Gordy felt let down by its smallness. Still, the handwriting unmistakably belonged to his Aunt Pris, which meant it could contain something extraordinary. There was a number of smudgy stickers adhered to all 4 sides of the box, listing the many countries and nations it had passed through before arriving at its destination. Max crinkled his brow. Who's Priscilla Rook? She's my aunt. This one I told you about, Gordy said, hefting the box. Max's eyes widened. The crazy one who shrinks heads? Open it! The shrunken head accusation had never been proven, but Gordy refused to doubt his aunt's abilities. First, I have to test it. Gordy knew the drill. Taking the box back to the basement lab, he pulled a Ziploc bag filled with pink powder from one of the drawers of the apothecary tables. Hang on, Adeline said. Won't your mom be upset if you open her stuff? Gordy sprinkled the powder on the package. The grains peppered the brown paper, but that was it. No sparks or electricity, no fizzing reaction. It's clean. Gordy gave an affirming nod. But you're right. I don't think I better open it without my mom. After all, opening my mother's mail without permission could get him into a lot of trouble. Who knew what Aunt Pris had sent? Good idea, Adeline said. What if it's full of bad stuff like poison? Why would Gordy's aunt send him poison? Max asked. Adeline folded her arms. She didn't send the package to him. She sent it to his mother. They're sisters, Max said. They're not enemies. Gordy's aunt wouldn't send radioactive goop for no good reason. Gordy nodded, but then he swallowed, considering the situation. From the part of the phone conversation he'd overheard between his mom and his aunt, it sounded like Aunt Pris was in trouble, which meant the package could have something important in it, something that only the few people she trusted were meant to see. He also remembered all the things his mom had told him the day before about the bad people she had to hunt down and catch, dangerous people, dark elixirs who could potentially cause her alarm and harm. What if Aunt Pris's package had something to do with those sorts of people? What if his mom needed what was inside the box right now? Without a second's hesitation, Gordy tore off the wrapper and removed the tape. I thought you were going to wait, Adeline slapped Gordy's shoulder with the back of her hand. Remembering rule number 1 of the 5 rules of potion making, never draw unnecessary attention to the potion community. Gordy didn't know how to easily explain himself. There could be ingredients that need refrigeration, Gordy reasoned. I wouldn't want them to spoil. Yeah, Rivera, Max added. Mind your own business. What do you think is in it? He rubbed his hands together in excitement, and though she frowned in disapproval, Adeline crowded behind Gordy as he opened the package. Inside, Gordy first discovered a pair of 3XL turquoise sweatpants with an elastic band. The pants were pocked with holes and covered with mildew stains. He picked them up delicately, holding them by the waistband with his thumbs and forefingers. The sweatpants would have smothered his petite aunt-sized Pris. Max smirked. It looks like a clown suit. No offense, Gordy, but your aunt's kind of odd, Adeline said, her long black hair tumbling across Gordy's shoulder as she leaned forward. Gordy knew sometimes the post office opened strange packages to ensure the safety of the contents. Elixirists often added clothes as a way to throw people off from what really lay inside. Diving to the bottom, he found a wooden box with hinges and a brass keyhole. Trembling with excitement, Gordy removed the box from the package and placed it on the floor. Open it, Max leaned in, crowding Gordy. It's locked. Gordy returned to the package and searched for any sort of key. But after a few seconds of rummaging, he came up empty-handed. Check the pants, Max instructed, nodding at the turquoise pants. Gordy grinned. That actually makes sense. He checked in the front pocket, and there it was, a brass key with a small, circular head. A moment of uncertainty struck him as he debated whether or not he should open the box. But then the moment passed. There was no turning back now that he had the key. The hinges creaked as the lid opened. Inside, Gordy found 3 objects, a folded piece of paper and 2 glass vials. One of the vials was no bigger than his pinky finger and had a circular section of brown cork wedged in the opening. It was empty. The other vial was corked as well, but that one ballooned out at the bottom and contained a thick, cream-colored liquid. Gordy knew better than to open the bottles blindly. The paper was obviously his aunt's instructions, and he carefully unfolded it. Wanda, I did what I thought was best. I'll explain it all once I'm clear. I'm so sorry, but I had little choice. Get ready for a war. Pris. Ominous, Max whispered. Do you even know what that word means? Adeline frowned, or asked. Max frowned. Guys, Gordy turned the paper over, trying to find any other scribbled instructions. But other than the strange message, there were no other words. He stared at the 2 bottles. I don't think I was supposed to open this. Huh? That's odd. It's not like I didn't tell you not to, Adeline said sarcastically. Chill out, Max said. All we need to do is wrap the package back up. Your mom will never know. He stood and nudged the box with his foot, causing the 2 vials to clink together. Gordy instinctively shot his hand out to steady the bottles, and his fingers touched the small, empty vial. Something sharp, protruding from the cork stopper, pricked him, and he recoiled in pain as a tiny hole appeared at the center of his pointer finger. The empty vial suddenly filled with a reddish liquid. Gordy stuck his finger in his mouth and sucked away the sting, but the pain only lasted for a second. When he looked at his finger again, he couldn't find any pinprick on his skin. Then, like the disappearing pinprick, the red liquid in the bottle vanished as well, leaving it empty once more. "Oh man, Gordy, I honestly didn't mean to bump that," Max muttered. "What just happened?" He looked queasy, and Gordy felt a shiver of uneasiness pass through him. "Yeah, what kind of weird potion is that?" Adeline slid backwards on the ground, putting distance between her and the package. "I don't know." Gordy didn't have much experience handling vanishing concoctions. His Aunt Pris, though, was an elixirist who spent the majority of her time traveling through exotic and mysterious lands. She wasn't known to be an obedient rule follower, which meant the potion could have easily contained something hazardous. "Maybe we should clean up," Adeline suggested, "and I probably need to get home." "Yeah, you probably do," Max agreed. Adeline scowled. "We both do." Gordy didn't argue as the three of them returned the items to the box and covered it with the pair of sweatpants. He struggled to remove the image of the strange vial from his mind and the red liquid appearing before suddenly and mysteriously vanishing. It had looked a lot like blood. He didn't know how he knew it, but something told Gordy the blood was his. End of chapter 8.